Hey, it's Jeff from Home Renovation here, and here we are, part 5 of our series. Now we're talking about flooring installation, different assemblies, how to get from one product to the next and get the best result. But before we do that, we want to do a little demonstration here so you understand the concept of deflection. Now, I'm not going to do an in-depth tutorial today about how to install tile, but I'm going to cover some of the basics so you have an idea what's going on. Now, here we have our subfloor. Okay, it's 5/8 OSB. And in its current condition, now it's been, we'll call it screwed down and glued down, okay? Because that is the way that we like it. Every 8 inches, right? Just like the rest of the demonstration. And here we have 5/8 plywood. Now, if you add these two layers together, you get to 1 1/4 inches. And that is the magic number for doing tile install direct onto plywood. You want good one side plywood because this bonds really well with the thin set. And you don't want to have a second layer of OSB. OSB doesn't bond very well to thin set, so you can't cheat and do that. So this year, we're going to find that with the cost of plywood, it may not be that feasible, but in most cases, it actually makes a lot of sense. The other option is to use a cement board. Now this cement board here is a 1/2 inch. And if you were to add that with a little bit of thin set, you end up with the same 1 1/4 inches. This is my recommendation for tile. I know right away there's a lot of tile guys out there that use 1/4 inch cement board when they're doing their installations. And they swear by it. They've been doing it for a lot of years. I don't use cement board where I am. We always go with plywood. So I don't have enough experience to really chime into that, except for me, the idea of a 1/4 inch cement board, you're really depending on the thin set application. There's a lot of, how do you call it, faith being put in the bond of that thin set to that OSB in order to get the strength. So, before we start, let's do a demonstration. Here's a floor joist cavity, okay? It's typical. There's nails or screws, and let me show you what happens when you step on it. Okay? That's just body weight. That's called deflection, okay? The floor moves. Now, I'm just gonna throw a few screws in here real quick, and we'll take a look at the difference in the deflection once we have them laminated together. Okay? 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 Now, hopefully, if that went well, you will have seen that this has a lot less deflection than the other side. Now, what we do here is then, at this point, we're going to be adding thin set and then our tile. So, an approved tile installation, just so you know, is go back to your OSB, put in your subfloor, and we have a video for that. I'll put all the links to all the videos that are related to this in the description below. And then you add your thin set and lay your tile. Now, we're going to do a really in-depth tile installation video in the near future. So if you're interested in learning about how to lay tile, floors, walls, different sizes, wet rooms, concrete, plywood, all the different scenarios, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel right now and click the bell for notifications. Because when that video comes out, it's probably going to be about a 2-hour tutorial on everything to do with installing tile. And it should make a lot of difference for a lot of people out there who've got to tackle these projects on your own. But between now and then, we got my little mock-up here, and we're going to get a lot of the groundwork covered. Here's a very traditional tile nowadays. It's 12 by 24, all right? And you're going to see that all of that together becomes the thickness of your floor. Now, just for the sake of showing this, this is a piece of 3/4 inch pine. It's the same thickness as regular solid wood hardwood, okay? And you're going to see that there's a difference in the height. And a lot of people are wondering, how do I install tile flush with hardwood? Do I have to build up this side? Do I have to install some plywood, 1/4 inch or something? And the answer is you could, but there is another option. I'm not going to get into the option today. We're going to do that in the tile video. But there is an alternative from cement board and plywood that you can put directly on your OSB, and it's called Schluter-Dietrich. There's other membranes out there as well. and it gets laid in thin set, filled with thin set, and you can tile on top of it, and they actually finish flush. So we're not going to demonstrate that today, but we are going to let you know that there is an option, so don't despair, okay? You don't have to cover your whole house in plywood just to raise up the level to meet your tile. You can install your tile to the height of your hardwood. So right now we're going to go through a bunch of accepted or approved installation techniques, okay? So we already know tile. Tile is 5/8 OSB, 5/8 plywood, or 1/2 inch cement board, or the Schluter-Dietrich membrane, and then your tile. That works in almost every situation as long as you've got a 2x10 construction on 16-inch on center floor joists, okay? And that's a pretty good money in the bank scenario. At any time, if you're cheating on any one of those items, the spacing, the thickness of the joist, the thickness of your assembly, you're running the risk of having too much of that deflection we were talking about and breaking out the grout in between the tiles and possibly delaminating the tile from the cement. And that's just horrible. It's just don't do that to yourself. You don't want to put everything in, because don't forget, tile we're putting in bathrooms and kitchens. And in those situations, if your tile delaminates, the only way to fix that, if it cracks, is to replace it. So, key to the newbies, when you buy tile, buy extra in case you run into problems, okay? Because the last thing you want to do is have a bunch of cracked tile in your room and you can't find any more product inventory, because they're always recycling and changing things in and out. It gets outdated really quick, okay? And you'll have a kitchen and next year you'll have cracked tile. Oh no, and you go back to the store, we don't sell that anymore. Well, all my kitchen cabinets and everything are installed on top of it. What am I gonna do? And the answer is cry, because now you gotta go start all over again. So don't do that to yourself. When you buy tile, buy extra. Don't be cheap. Don't measure off the room and pull out your design software and figure out, I need exactly 86 square feet. Buy 100, all right? Just have some extras lying around. Make your life a lot simpler. You won't have any stress. It's not about the install, it's about the repairs. What if? What if I didn't screw it right? What if there was a weak spot, right? What if somebody drops something heavy and shatters a tile? Think about all these possibilities and have extra. Now, for the lack of having any hardwood around, here's our hardwood. Now, if you're over top of a conditioned space, you don't need any paper. But if you are on a crawl space, then there's definitely going to be a need for a felt paper. Okay, you check your different regions around the world, but everybody has a different requirement. It might even have a vapor barrier attached to it. And you install that over top of it and it gets nailed, and that gets attached to the floor. Tile attached to the floor. You might even have something called engineered hardwood, which is a lot like this product, only a little thicker, and it gets attached to the floor. And that's usually about 1/2 inch to 5/8 thick, not as much as 3/4. Then we move into laminate, good old-fashioned MDF laminate. I recommend installed on a 3mm EVA subflooring. It's a quiet pad. Okay, this stuff here has a foil back. It's a vapor barrier. And this absorbs sound and gets rid of impact noise. Now this particular flooring I bought from Home Depot already has it attached, so you don't need to have it underneath it. But if it doesn't have it attached, you need to use the pad. Next kind of flooring is a floating hardwood, engineered hardwood, okay? This is brilliant. Again, this is floating. We have attached products and we have floating products, all right? The floating product goes on an underpad for the same reason, click locks together. And then we have the vinyl products, same thing. It's a floating floor, click locks together, goes on an underpad. In every situation that you're installing a floating floor, you want the underpad, okay? Let's stop the argument right now. Home Depot came out with a product and they said, don't use an underpad with it. And they had that on the market for a couple years until they changed their mind and said, we need to start using an underpad. So when people tell you you don't need an underpad with a floating floor, just tell them, no, Jeff says I need an underpad, and get one, all right? You're always gonna need an underpad. This absorbs impact noise, okay? Maybe we'll just do a quick test right now and see if I know what I'm talking about. Huh? Do you hear that? It's a lot noisier. Rule number one when you're doing a flooring job, and I'll be honest with you, I don't expect all of you to do your whole house at once, okay? So having that in mind, since you're gonna be doing room at a time in a lot of cases, rule number one is take everything back down, right back to the OSB, okay? This is your start. This is your canvas for your new work of art that you're gonna put together. Until you got back down to the OSB, you're lying to yourself about what you're doing. you're putting product over product over product, okay? And here's what happens. You're creating such an unusual thickness in the floor that no one has engineered a product to help you transition from one room to the next. Every one of these products here have got products designed to transition from one to the next because they were manufactured with transition pieces. Okay, so here's the deal. First transition, let's talk about going from tile. First of all, tile. If we are going to hardwood floor, we have a transition piece for that. Okay, done. All right, and these metal trims are sold and they're designed to be installed underneath the tile so you get flush and it comes down and it caps the wood. So even if your bathroom has got a bit of a gap at the door, you can transition that gap onto the hardwood. Okay, that's a nice clean look. The next product. Why not? We'll just go through the whole run. All right, here we are now. A nice thick laminate in your hallway. There's a product here for you. Again, does the transition, and it has extra support here so that you can get that over top of your flooring and you can put your tile afterwards, okay? Now the danger here, and I'll be honest with you, is that this is what we call a temporary floor. This is supposed to last 50 years. Because they're floating, we only expect 25 out of them. So at some point, you're going to want to remove that floor and then install another floor right underneath. And it may be tricky, okay? So having something in the cement like that is not beneficial. They do make this. Here's a transition. It's adjustable. Look at this. This ramp is always moving, so you can actually lock your floor in underneath it forever and ever and ever. And that gives you all the flexibility in the world to make adjustments over time. So you can put your tile floor in today, do your bathroom, the rest of your house looks like junk. That's okay because you've got a transition here that works. And then when you are ready for your flooring, you can set it in and drop it down. Yeah, perfect every time, right, Max? Now you'll see that these transitions, they come in a variety of different profiles and they're made so that they can adapt. You can get them like this, okay? So that when you use that Schluter Dietra, the metal comes the same height as the wood, as the tile. All these different options are on the marketplace. So the secret to success with flooring is knowing that as long as you're using an approved assembly, you're going to have trim options to go from one kind of material to the next. Here's another option that you have on your repertoire. So let's assume that this is a bathroom, this is a hallway, and the door is right here, and this is the threshold, the transition, okay? And you've got a carpet in the hallway, and you want a tile. Well, you've got options, oddly enough. We have this transition right here. Check this out. Okay, it actually sits over top the edge of the tile, of the carpet, sorry. And the tile will actually sit on top of it. Now don't get worked up with the color because they come in a lot of different colors. And when you install it dry, it should be a little taller because don't forget we're adding thin set underneath. Okay, that gets a nice clean look, all right? Here's another option you have. Again, okay, not a problem. And the day comes, you change the carpet out, the carpet installer comes back, and he's right back in business again, all right? Here's another option. This is a little more retro, and you can get these marble sills in 4 and 6 inch, but sometimes your bathroom is an odd shape. You can get this, you can plywood right up to the edge. Leave about 1/4 of an inch overhang, all right, so that when you put your underpad there, you can throw your carpet in, and now it can be tucked just underneath. That's a perfect assembly. You tile up next to it. Now what you get over here is you get a ridge, right? This becomes a waterproofing system. You can put this in your bathroom so that if you get an overflow on your toilet or your tub, it'll actually hold water, and you can put baseboard tile on as a baseboard, and you can grout it and put silicone on the joints. You can make your bathroom waterproof. I know, and we used to do this all the time. More and more and more you're going to find that options for flooring are changing because it's all about design aesthetics. Everybody wants a nice flush floor, I don't know if they're all anticipating, you know, getting older and using walkers or what it is, but it seems like everybody wants a nice flush floor nowadays. It's a very sexy look. Just remember, modern materials require modern subfloors. So remember, the key to a good installation is your assembly. And the assembly is not what you do from the OSB up. Your assembly includes your floor joists, the thickness, the spacing, the condition, the span, right? A 2x10 floor joist shouldn't be any longer than 16 feet from support to support. There are a lot of houses out there that are built substandard to that, and you can't just go jump in with modern materials and expect an older house to perform well. If you have 2x8 floor joists, you don't have a strong enough floor to start tiling. I'm telling you right now. So resist the temptation to go do tiling projects on 1/2-inch OSB or 2x8 structure or 24-inch on center or something on an 18 or 20-foot span. It's going to fail. All right? There's no way that you can save that assembly. It all comes down to this: 2x10, 16-inch on center, less than 16-foot span. Okay, 5/8 OSB in good solid condition, right? Can't just have old moldy, rotten, fire-rated, damaged product and say it's still there, it's fine. That's not common sense. Make sure it's all screwed and glued, just like in the video. If you're gonna start doing tile assemblies, you can't fuss around. Back in the 1960s, they invented thin set. And for the last, 60 years, maybe 50. For the last 10 years, we've had it figured out. But for 50 years following that, the industry's been going through a cycle of experimentation with the floor assemblies, okay? There's a lot of guys out there who are still doing things wrong because they learned how to do it from somebody who didn't know how to do it 20 or 30 years ago. Don't become a victim. The larger the tile, the less room you have for deflection and for making a mistake, all right? Older floors had little tiles. You can bend that and deflect it all you want, no problem. But the bigger the floor, the bigger the tile, the less margin of error you have. So make sure you do it right. I don't want to stress that enough because there's nothing worse than going through all that trouble, putting down a beautiful, perfect flat floor, right? Getting the grout work done, starting to enjoy your space, and then the floor fails within a few weeks. That's a maddening experience. I don't want you to have that. Now, in this video series, at the very beginning, we showed you how to open your subfloor. I think if you're ever going to do a tile job, one of the rules you have to do is open the subfloor. You need to know what you don't know, okay? Is your floor 2x10 or is it 2x8 with strapping and then drywall and it looks like it's a 2x10? You just don't know until you take a look. It only takes a few minutes to cut a hole and inspect, make sure everything is good, right? You can patch it. We got the videos in the series here to how to do that. Make sure before you move forward, you go backwards in time and make sure that your older houses are brought up to a modern standard. Screws and glue is the best, but if screws only, it'll work still as long as you've got the right dimensional lumber and everything else. I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just trying to educate you, all right? It took the industry 50 years to figure out how to do this right, so don't think on your first or second try you're gonna experiment and get lucky. It won't happen, all right? Now, as far as all the other floating floors are concerned, knock yourself out. But don't install them until you at least go by and screw down your subfloor if you don't have it screwed down yet, okay? Because deflection will still happen. You're gonna get the squeaks in the OSB with the nails, and then your brand new floor is gonna make noise and people are gonna be like, what's with your new floor, dude? All right, don't let that happen either, okay? One step at a time. Here's the rules. Make sure you take everything back to OSB. Don't do layer on layer, all right? That's a guaranteed recipe for disaster. Open your OSB, know what you're dealing with. Make sure it's always screwed, okay? Even if you're just putting a floating floor, what does it take? A box of screws in an hour? You can screw your whole floor down. Avoid any squeaks in the future. If you have dimensional lumber and your floors have got too much movement, make sure you open your subfloor, right? Fill the gaps if they're bowed, and if they're humped, then shave them down, okay? And if you shave too much off, laminate a little plywood on the side. You gotta make sure that your structure is flat. Materials like this, look at this. If I start installing flooring like this to follow a bend, okay, and it comes back out, I'm actually forcing gaps to happen in between the material because the distance on the short side of the curve versus the long side of that curve, it's longer here. The material isn't going to stretch to fill that gap. You've got to have it flat, okay? Make sure you take time to make your floors flat. A lot of these products that we're selling on the market today are actually designed to be installed on today's modern construction. Engineered floor joists, all right? And those floor joists are designed to be perfectly straight, perfectly level. They're never gonna warp or bend or move. And so that's why all these new modern big materials work so well. If you have an older house, you've gotta bring it up to par so that it's ready for installation with newer materials. If you don't wanna do that, then stick to hardwood. Nail down tongue and groove hardwood in an old house all day long. No problem at all, okay? All right, now listen, here on this channel, I'm not just doing installation videos and letting you have at it and destroy your home. This is a DIY channel, not a DIY channel, which is do yourself in, okay? You can't just go to Home Depot and buy some flooring and an underpad, go home and put in a floor. It's not that simple. Chances are it's gonna fail. You're gonna be going crazy trying to understand what it is that you did wrong. Do yourself a favor. Learn how to install a floor from the very beginning, which is to prep your subfloor. Click the link right here. We got the whole 5-part series in a playlist. Go from A to Z on this one, okay? Learn everything you don't know, because if you understand how the whole thing goes together, you can be your best contractor ever.